Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of The Dan Dawson Show. So, I just finished watching the Joe Biden speech tonight. Um, Honestly, it was one of the most disheartening things I've ever seen from an American president for a couple of reasons. Let me start the beginning by starting at the end of the speech. So, he gives a speech, he's done. And I can tell you this, I worked as a CNA for many years. When you have older clients, and you can tell they're lost, you walk up, you grab their hand, you take them by the arm, you lead them to where they need to go. And that is what happened tonight at the end of Joe Biden's speech. Joe Biden walks up. He's turning left, he's turning right, like he doesn't know where he needs to go. Joe Biden rushes up off stage, grabs him by the arms. First, she gives him a kiss, but she grabs him by the arm and then leads him away. And even then, he's walking like a nursing home client. That was very disheartening to see that from a United States president. It was just really embarrassing, really sad. I'm telling you, and having worked as many years as I did as a CNA in nursing homes, here off and on, I saw it. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh boy. But let's get on to the rest of the speech. So for about 3/4 of this speech, he condemned MAGA Republicans, he called them. Said they were an existential threat. And you've heard Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokesperson, say the same thing. She said it a few times now. Said we have to fight them. We have to, preserve our democracy. He goes, they're fascists. Even though, he goes, they call for violence. They revel in violence. Even though anybody with a lick of common sense can see that for 2-3 years, you had BLM and Antifa, the left, burning down federal courthouses, assassinating cops. Yes, assassinating cops. Attempting to murder cops in Seattle by lighting a precinct on fire after packing snow up in front of it. Still rioting in Portland, assassinating Trump supporters. And yet he calls MAGA Republicans fascists. And they're still hooked on this January 6th thing. Never mind that women, children, and our elders are afraid to walk the streets. Never mind these blue cities have record high crime. Didn't talk about that. He also talked about, of course, taking away your Second Amendment rights. Now you have to really wonder, and it's not just some personal thing, why they want so hard to take away your Second Amendment rights. Because they've already deemed you enemies. Yep, you're enemies. They don't want their enemies armed. At least the people they see as their enemies. They do not want you armed. It doesn't matter if you're Republican at this point. Remember, they eat their own kind too. If you would be dumb enough to let this government disarm you, then you deserve what you get. Me, I won't be disarmed. Put me in a casket first. It was just very disheartening. He didn't talk about anything really substantive. He didn't talk about the border crisis. He didn't talk about crime. The only thing he said about the economy is exceptional. It doesn't really feel exceptional. You know what felt exceptional? $1.86 gas and being able to afford groceries. When Trump was president, I was eating prime rib. True story. I haven't had a prime rib since Biden became president. Saving my money, trying to be conservative with my cash. Because you never know what's coming with this idiot. He didn't say anything about China and Taiwan. He didn't say anything about Russia and Ukraine. Because if he had said something about Ukraine, you have to understand, Ukraine and Taiwan Now Taiwan, something came out today, and I'll explain that in a minute. But you see what happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. They armed their citizens with M4s, American-made M4s, M16s, right? And Russia has fighter jets. They still haven't won. So this malarkey about you need F-15s to take on the U.S. government. Afghanistan didn't need them, even though you gave them some. And some Apache helicopters. They're good for you, Joe. Good. You just armed them. Ukraine seems to be doing just fine without any of those things. It's called guerrilla warfare. Because here's what any soldier knows. You might be able to bomb a block with an F-15. You can't hold that block with an F-15. All you can do is destruction. In which, if he's talking about using F-15s against American citizens in American cities, that's called treason. And hopefully, if he tried to do that, he would be removed from power any way necessary. If you're going to launch war against American citizens on American soil. At the end of his speech, let me go to the Taiwan thing real quick. So today, a Taiwan billionaire came out offering up $20 million. They're going to train troops. And then I think it's another $10 million to train sharpshooters so they could take on China. So look, they didn't have the Second Amendment. All hell breaks out, they arm the citizens. Now they have the Second Amendment. That's why we can't let ours go. We're not going to take another step back on the Second Amendment. As far as him calling MAGA Republicans fascist, I do believe Nancy Pelosi called for the blocking of the First Amendment. And of course wants the Second Amendment gone, and so does Joe. But remember when she came out and she said these social media companies have to start taking down people? Remember that? Censoring people? Sounds fascist to me. Joe is very much against the Second Amendment. We all know that. It sounds fascist. Fascists don't want their people armed, because then when they get tired of their crap, they might overthrow you. Maxine Waters, he says, MAGA Republicans, all they revel in is violence. You know, even though the country burnt for 2 years. Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, who's the other one? Not Pelosi. The one from San Francisco. I keep forgetting her name. Anyway, actually, that is Pelosi from San Francisco. Anyway, it'll come to me. That's not important right now. They've all called for violence against political adversaries. Why would you do that? Because you can't win on your ideas. You can't win by your actions. It was a horrible speech. Horrible. You can't, for 3/4 of your speech, talk about half the country that voted for Trump. Because make no mistake, it doesn't matter if you have a MAGA hat or if you voted for him because you liked his policies. You're the enemy now. You're the enemy of this administration. You will be treated as such. I have no doubts about that. I'm imagining this video will probably get about 3-4 views. It's going to get suppressed. But, you know, I don't do this for money, so it doesn't really matter to me. I do this because I want to. But if you do see this video, make sure you like, subscribe, make sure you share this one, especially for my people over there on Rumble. It was just a ridiculous speech. You cannot do 3/4 of your speech talking about half the country is enemies of the democracy and they're trying to overtake the country. And then at the end, talk about unity. We can do this together. No, you've already sent your message when you opened your mouth in your first few statements. It was really divisive. It was really horrible. A lot of people are comparing this whole MAGA hatred thing to where Hillary Clinton messed up with the whole bag of deplorables thing. This is worse than that. This is a lot worse. Hillary wasn't president. So what she says carries very little weight. Matter of fact, good luck. Well, even on YouTube, it's like nobody cares. But this is the president of the United States. Now, when you had China came out, Russia came out, when they raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago place for classified documents, having a top secret security clearance, I could tell you this about classified documents. Those pictures they took of the covers of the classified documents, posted all over the internet, guess what? They better hope Trump declassified them, because if not, they're all guilty of treason and espionage. The way they went after Eric Snowden, they should be gone after, if Trump didn't declassify him. So if he didn't declassify him, win. If he did declassify him, win for him. I would like to see some people in the FBI burn, though, now that you have all their agents coming out, or a lot of their field agents coming out saying, this is crap. This is not the way the FBI is supposed to be run. And when your agents turn against you, that's your leadership. But back to the speech. Worst speech ever. Worst speech I've ever heard. I can barely stand to watch this man talk. He looks like he's always about 2 seconds from going poop with all those wrinkles and that big-ass frown on his face. Which is one thing. Trump was more of my kind of speaker, one side of me from my kind of speaker, right? When I'm all charged up and I'm just going at people. You see me do it on YouTube. And Rumble. Obama was another side that I like to see. Very elegant. Didn't put people down. He knew what he was doing. Didn't agree with his policies. I thought they were stupid. See now, some of the things he bragged about accomplishing. Safe streets. That's their keyword for gun control. Because these streets are not safe. These streets are not safe. You don't believe me? Right now in Texas, it is 8 o'clock at night. I dare you, if you live in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, take a walk around the block right now. Tell me how that goes. These streets are not safe. They're not safe at all. Really ridiculous. Oh, he said they passed the biggest health care or whatever since Obamacare. Well, here's the thing. Obamacare screwed a lot of people who were teetering on the edge. They had they had health insurance. Then, once Obamacare came in, a lot of people lost their health insurance because it became unaffordable and untenable. A lot of things he didn't talk about. He didn't talk about the student loan debt forgiveness. Like I already told you about the border, and he didn't talk about any of that stuff. He didn't say where we stood on Taiwan. He didn't talk about the important things. He said a whole bunch of nothing with a lot of words. With a lot of words. That was all he did. It was really disheartening. And if you're a Republican, you cannot feel good about this administration. And November's coming up. If you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. Vote Republican. Fascism. Let's talk about fascism. You know what fascism is? I'm going to take your weapons, leave you a victim to my mob. When I say it's their mob, it's their mob. His vice president was out bailing out Antifa and BLM people. I was watching this thing today. One of the people she bailed out went back to jail 2 weeks later for murder. Yeah, that was their program that bailed him out. Isn't that ridiculous? I'm going to take away your First Amendment rights. I'm going to lock you down, make sure you can't go anywhere. And then I'm going to get on a flight and go to Florida where it's open. Go to a red state where it's open and enjoy myself. No, you can't go out to dinner to eat. Then I'm going to go to these swank restaurants. And ask yourself this, right? Where were the mom and pop restaurants closing down? And the big name 5-star, 4 Michelin star restaurants allowed to stay open. Because this is where all the politicians go to eat. They believe like Cori Bush believes. Their lives are important. Not only that, their lifestyles are important. Yours isn't. He talked about green energy. You mean like it's going on in California right now? Where by 2035 they will have banned all gas-powered cars? And they just came out today and said, because of electricity constraints, don't charge your electric car. So imagine now you got a whole state, because it's a few million electric cars in California. Now imagine the whole state is driving electric cars. You've been told you can't charge your car. The power grid's not going to hold up to it. And he had the nerve to brag about infrastructure. That's not infrastructure. That's not infrastructure. But if you want to see the sad state of America, I was really disheartened. Civil war, I'm not even going to say maybe coming. Civil war is coming in one form or another. It may not be armies against armies, but civil war is coming. It's already here. That's why you have conservatives moving to red states. That's why you have people fleeing these cities. Everybody's lining up. Everybody's lining up and it's getting ready to go down. Make sure you're prepared. That means make sure you have a firearm. If you haven't done maintenance on your firearm in a while, it's just been sitting in the closet. Get in there and do some maintenance on it. Make sure you go out and get you a rifle. 3 different firearms I'd like to see you have. A rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. Make sure you have plenty of food and water. Make sure you have an escape plan to get somewhere into the country. When I lived in Washington, me and my buddy Dr. Fax, we had a whole map and escape plan. We go out and, make sure we had supplies scattered around. We had different escape routes in case we had to get out. That's how bad it was getting in Washington. And it may sound silly, but the way the riots were going down, the riots even spread into, like I said, I lived in a well-to-do neighborhood. We lived on a private golf course. The riots even spread over there, So we were prepared in case we had to get out of town for a week or two. And not only that, earthquakes, stuff like that, flooding. But make sure you're prepared, because I don't see this in any other way except for civil war. It can't. It's not even feasible. It's not even feasible. When the president of the United States comes out and says half the people in the country are a danger to the United States, you got a problem. You got a problem. And our problem is Joe Biden and the leftists. The leftists, these fascists. And the reason I call them fascists is they've proven that by their actions that I've already listed out in this video. They've proven they're fascist. Oh, they call themselves the Democratic Socialist Party. Think about that. Alrighty, guys. I watched that speech so you wouldn't have to, and it's really hard for me to sit through. So I didn't want you to have to go through that. I swallowed this one for you. So like, subscribe, share, and as always, especially in these days and times, keep your powder dry and do what you got to do.